Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon
Waalaikumsalam
and best
warahmatullahi
wishes.
wabarakatuh.
His Excellency, the Dean of Agriculture Faculty, Universitas 11 Maret, Mr. Professor Samanhudi. The Honorable Head of Agribusiness Study Program, Universitas 11 Maret, Mrs. Dr. Sri Marwanti. The Honorable Moderator of Webinar Top Schooler 2021 Agribusiness Study Program Universitas 11 Maret, Mr. Dr. Evi Irawan. Honorable speakers at our event today, Mr. Professor Masyuri from Agriculture Economics and Agribusiness Gajah Mada University, and also Mr. Professor Jusuf Wessler, Chair of Agriculture Economics, Wageningen University and Research. The Honorable Present of Mr. and Mrs. Lecturer of Agribusiness Study Program Universitas 11 Maret and respectable all participants of this webinar. My name is Maheswari Chandran Tias from Agribusiness Study Program in class year 2019. It is a wonderful and precious chance for me to be your Master of Ceremony. Welcome to this webinar, Top Schooler 2021 Agribusiness Study Program of Faculty Universitas 11 Maret. We would like to thank everyone here for taking time to attend our remarkable webinar. To start our opening ceremony today, allow me to read today's agenda. The first is singing the national anthem Indonesia Raya. The second is remarks or speeches. The third is the core event webinar. The fourth is closing. Those are today's agenda, which will be present soon. The first agenda is singing the national anthem Indonesia Raya. Who will be led? The floor is yours. Thanks to the committee in charge. The next agenda is remarks or speeches. Please welcome Mr. Professor Samanhudi, the Dean of Agriculture Faculty, Universitas 11 Maret. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mbak. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, the participant of webinar Top Scholar 2021. Welcome all of you to this webinar, which has received significant attention from students and academics. First of all, let us thank Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, the Almighty who has given His grace and guidance so that the webinar Top Scholar 2021 with the theme both food security in Indonesia and will golden rice be a miracle for Indonesia can be held successfully. I express my highest gratitude and appreciation to the speaker, Professor Masuri and Professor Justus Wieseler. I believe that this webinar will be the source of innovative ideas, concepts, and breakthroughs in the development of agribusiness innovation in the future, especially in the field of research and development. This webinar will not be well organized without the support of various parties, especially the Universitas 11 Maret and the participants. Therefore, I want to express my gratitude. I especially thank the head of study program, Ibu Dr. Sri Marwanti, and the organizing committees for their hard work, perseverance, and passion in preparing and organizing this webinar to go well, smoothly, and successfully. The program study of agribusiness, Faculty of Agriculture, Universitas 11 Maret, which succeeded in obtaining international certification from the ASEAN University Network Quality Assurance or AUNQA in 2019 and is currently in the process of applying for international accreditation from the Agency for Quality Assurance or AQAS, took the initiative to hold a webinar with the topic which is currently being discussed internationally and is relevant to the current condition in Indonesia with expert speakers on food security, Professor Masuri from Universitas Gadjah Mada, and on golden rice, Professor Justus Wieseler from Wageningen University and Research. Increased international activities in order to realize Universitas 11 Maret into an international standard university or better known as a world-class university characterized by excellency in the field of teaching or education, research, and community services. This activity can also provide opportunities to conduct and strengthen networking for the program study of agribusiness with the world's top universities. Wageningen University and Research is a university ranked 1 in agriculture and forestry based on the US World University Ranking 2021. Finally, this seminar let us extend the network and cooperation among all stakeholders of the rice research and development sector, especially in Indonesia and the world in general, to build better agriculture, especially agribusiness in Indonesia. By saying Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, I open this webinar. Welcome and enjoy the webinar. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much to Mr. Professor Samanhudi for the opening remarks of the webinar Top Scholar 2021. Dear audiences, before we start the core of event, please on your camera. We can do a photo session first. There are 5 slides in here. Please on your camera. Are you ready? Okay, first slide. 1, 2, 3, say cheese. Second slide. 1, 2, 3, give your best smile. Third slide. 1, 2, 3. Fourth slide, stay on your best smile. 1, 2, 3, and the last 5 slide. 1, 2, 3.
Ya Allah.
So many participation today. Thank you, everyone. Let's keep on the next agenda. Core event that is speaker will be get by the best moderator. Mr. Dr. F. Irawan is a researcher and lecturer who studies agricultural economics issues, particularly environmental and institutional economic issues in agriculture. He completed his undergraduate education in agribusiness at IPB University in 1996, and then continued his postgraduate education in environmental science at Wageningen University in 2004. He completed his doctoral education at Humboldt University zu Berlin in 2009. Before joining at Universitas 11 Maret, Mr. Dr. F. Irawan was a researcher in environmental and natural resource economics at the Ministry of Environment and Forestry for approximately 20 years. He has been involved in several research projects related to watershed and lake management. Please welcome Mr. Dr. F. Irawan. Time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Chandra. Right now, I'm handling for this webinar as a moderator. Good morning, Professor Wesseler from Wageningen, and good afternoon, everyone. Because in Wageningen right now is very early morning, I think it's around 7:30 in the morning. So, I think when I was in Wageningen, 7:30 is quite early morning for most of Dutch people. Usually they start work at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. So I hope you are all in a good health and happy today. These two things is very important today because we have to fight with COVID-19 and we have to increase our immune to be to get our body healthy and always happy. And because of this, we should be grateful for our health, I think. My name is F. Irawan, as introduced by Chandra as MC today. And I was assigned by committee to be a moderator. Today we will discuss about the classic problem of Indonesia, that is food security, and we also will discuss about golden rice. Maybe some of you are not well. I think we will do not have enough knowledge about golden rice. And Professor Justus will introduce you about what golden rice is and what is the benefit for Indonesia, whether it is a miracle or not for Indonesia, in particular in supporting food security. And today we have two the top speaker. One is Professor Masyuri from Gadjah Mada University, and second is Professor Justus Wesseler from Wageningen University. Welcome to this webinar, Professor Masyuri and also Professor Justus Wesseler. So before I proceed to the main session of this event, please let me briefly read the curriculum vitae of our speaker. First, I will read the curriculum vitae of Professor Masyuri. Professor Masyuri is a senior lecturer and researcher from Gadjah Mada University, Yogyakarta. It is around 60 kilometers west of the city, Professor Justus. I think last month you also joined to the international conference in Gadjah Mada University, held by Faculty of Agriculture over there. Professor Masyuri devoted his career, I think around more than 30 years, to the higher university and research on food security, especially rice. So according to his education background, he obtained his undergraduate and postgraduate degree from Gadjah Mada University, and then he continued to University of Philippines at Los Baños, and he completed his PhD over there in 1988. His research focused primarily on issue of rice and food security in Indonesia. He has published many books and book chapter as well as international article in journal and top journal and also in Indonesian journal. And our second speaker is Professor Justus Wesseler. I think you should the next slide, the next CV. Can you move to Professor Justus Wesseler? He received his PhD in 1996 in agricultural economics from Göttingen University in Germany, and he then moved to Wageningen University as assistant professor in 2000. In 2005, he appointed as associate professor, and then he moved to the Technical University of Munich, or München, if you do not know Munich, sometimes we call it München, as a professor of agriculture and food economics over there. And since January 2014, he promoted as full professor and head of agricultural economics and rural policy group at Wageningen University. His research currently focuses on bioeconomy and economics of biotechnology, value chains, and regulatory economics, including issues related to coexistency. I think that is a brief CV of our speaker. Both are very, very impressive. For those who want to know more about our speaker, I think Google is much better at providing the information you need rather than me. So you can search the background of our speakers today from Google. Well, I will come to the main session. So we will listen to our speaker, but before we go there, please allow me to announce some rule for participants, especially. I know some of you very enthusiastic to ask questions to both of our speaker, but please remain patient until they finish their presentation, because at the end of the presentation, we have a slot for question and answer for participant to discuss with our speaker. So because our time is very short, let me invite Professor Masyuri to give a presentation for about 45 minutes. Time is yours, Professor Masyuri.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Irawan, as a moderator, and thank you very much for also the Dean of the Faculty of Agriculture, Universitas 11 Maret, distinguished guest, Professor Justus Wesseler from Wageningen, and ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I thank to the Dean of the Faculty of Agriculture for giving me opportunity to share the food security in Indonesia. Let me share I share my PPT for presentation. Is it? Oh, it's already shared? Okay, thank you very much. Our outline is we talk about food security situation, and Global Food Security Index and possible policy. Okay. Let me show you what is the definition of food security. Food security at all need food and healthy life. And the dimension of the food security is food availability, food access, utilization, and stability. Food ability, the availability of sufficient quantities of food of appropriate quality, supplied through domestic production or imports, including food aid. Food access, access by individuals to the adequate resources, entitlements for acquiring appropriate foods for a nutritious diet. Entitlements are defined as the set of all commodity bundles over which a person can establish command given the legal, political, economic, and social arrangement of the community in which they live, including traditional rights such as access to common resources. Utilization of food through adequate diet, clean water, sanitation, and health care to reach a state of nutritional well-being where all physiological needs are met. This brings out of importance of non-food inputs in food security. Then the last one is stability. To be food secure, a population, household, or individual must have access to adequate food at all times. They should not risk losing access to food as a consequence of sudden shocks like economic or climate crisis, or cyclical events, and now pandemic COVID-19. The concept of stability can therefore refer to both the availability and access dimension of food security. The next one. Our nation is a set of islands composed of the largest islands. Indonesia are Kalimantan, and then actually the largest is what's it? Yes, Kalimantan, and then Sumatra, Papua, Sulawesi, and Java. And then but the population is not linear as the size of the islands. Even the biggest population is in Java Island, which is a rather small island, but very crowded. And many people like living in Java, like Yogyakarta and Surakarta. That's the island and the population. Okay, the next. And then number of farm household by farm size. Actually, Indonesia has maybe the country has the smallest farm size for the for the conducting agriculture in Indonesia, and this make riskier than other countries, because most of farmers has size less than half hectare. About 16,000 of them are less than 0.5 hectares, or more than 50%. More than 50% of the farm size is half hectare. That's big. Our farmer is very small, and this will influence the food security level. Only small farm are greater than 10 hectares. Okay, next. And most of them are living in urban area. About 69%, 66% living in urban area. So therefore, rural area is less than urban area or urban population. Most of them are living in urban. Okay, the next one. Yes. Next one, please. Yeah. This one, a small farmer data portrait in Indonesia. The farm size is the average is 0.6 hectare. And then the percentage of smallholders to total farmer is about 93%. And then percentage of female-headed households is about 11%. And then percentage of income from crop production is about 47%. And then income from on-farm income is about 49%. So about half of farmer has income from on-farm, and the others come from non-farm. Income from agricultural wage labor is about 6%. And then of income from non-agricultural activities and self-employment is about 30%. That's the portrait of a smallholder farmer. And then percentage of household rate, national poverty line is about 18%. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's about 18%. And then capital and input, the percent of household using motorized equipment is only 99.6%. So only small of mechanization. And then percent of credit beneficiary household is about 17%. So this is also very small capital from credit. So the rest are from their own capital. And then next one, about Global Food Security Index. Yeah, let's see in the picture. Here is the rank. The rank in the Global Food Security Index in Indonesia is 65. 65 among 113 countries. So in the middle of the countries, Indonesia. Even Indonesia has the member of G20, but in the Global Food Security Index is only ranked 65. So actually, we still should have strong effort to increase our Global Food Security Index. And and then the challenge is about the quality of okay, the next one. This is the Global Food Security Index. Yeah, in 2018 is number 65. So if we compare to our neighbor country like ASEAN countries, we still left behind Singapore. Singapore is number 1. Then Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam. Those countries has a rank higher than Indonesia. Okay, the next one. In 2019, this one a little improvement. If 2018, we rank number 65. No, not 65. Yeah, 65. Now we are increased rank to 62. 62. So there is a little improvement of the Global Food Security Index. And then the next one, in 2020, we decrease again. So our rank is 65. Back to 2018, our rank is 65. So this one is our challenge, how to increase the Global Security Index. That diverse. Okay, the next one. I think the Global Security Food Security Index is related to also Global Hunger Index. Like in the Global Food Security Index, in the Global Hunger Index, we are also in the middle of the countries in the world. Not so bad, but we are in the middle. And then okay, the next one. I think among ASEAN countries, among ASEAN countries, the same with the Global Food Security Index. I think in Global Hunger Index, also we are in the middle of the ASEAN countries. Above our country, the rank above our country is Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. So we should, in ASEAN countries, we are the biggest. Yeah, we are the biggest countries. We are the biggest GDP. But in the Global Hunger Index, we are only in the middle. That's also what's that? We have should be strong effort to increase our Global Hunger Index. Okay, and then the next one. If we talk about food insecurity in Indonesia, we have also not a good news, because prevalence of undernourishment decreased from 16.5% in 2011 to 9% in 2019. That's also the indicator of related to food security in Indonesia. And in that picture, in the picture, we see that we have also the children under stunted disease, like about 37% of our children has stunted. Yeah, and that's not good news in the food security. Okay, the next one. Now, according to our research long time ago in, was it about, I think about 5 years ago, we use Johnson and Tolle classification of the level of food security. There are 4 segments: proportion of food expenditure, low and high, and then standard Indonesian energy sufficiency, also from high and low. So we have classified into food secure, food vulnerable, food less secure, and then food insecure. I think the best point is if we belong to food secure. But what happened from our past? Next one. And that's the data before 11 and after 11. After 2011 and before 2011. In the left side is before 2011, and the right side is after 2011 up to 2014. What happened in that picture is that the figure above is clearly shown that there is a decline in quality of food security level. You can next page. Next page, please. Okay. There is a decline in quality of food security level in most provinces in Indonesia. In the average period of 2007 to 2014, there is only one province that enter into a criteria of food vulnerable. And in the average period of 11 to 14, there are almost more than half of Indonesia is not food secure status. The province of East Kalimantan, Papua, and North Maluku are included in the criteria of lack of food. Yeah, and that's bad news. Okay, the next one. That's the FAO policy priority for food security. I'm sorry that I sent the wrong PPT. Actually, I have the new PPT one, and then this one is the old PPT. Actually, in the new PPT, maybe I just mention here that the impact before that, the impact of COVID-19 is labor dismissal, fire, no job, unemployment, back to the rural, and then increase poor people. Farmer has no side job. Demand decrease, limited supply as a result of lockdown policy. And then there will be food crisis, and then disruption of in export and import, COVID disease threat. That's the impact of COVID-19, and they will influence the food security also. And then, so the conclusion is that post-COVID-19 effect on food security, increased poverty, and food insecurity. So our problem is how to increase food security, because of we still in the low level. And then the second one is how to improve food security because of the impact of COVID-19. So we have to full. And then in principally to increase food security is to enhance food availability, to enhance food access and utilization, and to enhance food stability. And then we'll talk one by one policy. I'm sorry, I think here there is none, but I'll talk about possible policy to increase food security. First one is protection and empowerment to farmers. Like subsidy, we should have like subsidy, because even there is no COVID, our government give BLT. Aid for poor farmer, for poor people, BLT, BPJS, etc. And we should add seed, bank interest, premium insurance, etc. And then labor intensive program for infrastructure improvement. You know, our infrastructure is not good, and then we have unemployment. So to couple the two situation is better. We have a labor intensive program for infrastructure improvement. And then we should give credit with low interest rate and credit insurance. You know, credit insurance is a new concept, not yet implemented here. And then enlarge agricultural insurance. As we can see that our agricultural insurance is only include livestock and paddy farm. So I think it's better to enlarge the agricultural insurance. Plus one, to enlarge the number of farmers from paddy field and livestock, and then to enlarge, to increase the number of livestock and number of crop farms. And then we should also to firm price guarantee and stabilization of our product. And then food storage, health protection, and extension. As you know, in last months or last several months in Bantul district, there are farmers who sell red onion to somebody, and the somebody is he said that he is one representative of estate or cooperative, but and then he paid the portion of the red onion, and then left. So farmers will get loss because most red onion didn't pay. This is because our government and our institution has no attention to that the fate of the farmers. And then integrated farming. I think the integrated farming is minimum input, zero waste, etc. It should be implemented in the farmers, whether small farm, medium farm, or big farm. PT Great Giant Pineapple has implemented this integrated farming, minimum input, zero waste in Lampung, I think, in province of Lampung. And then we should extend, enlarge to many small farm. In Yogyakarta, also there is Yayasan Bumi Langit has implemented this kind of integrated farming. I think it's better if it is location is possible. We should implement the integrated farming. And then import substitution. Now is the time. It's better time to increase import substitution crops like sugar, soybean, rice, corn, wheat substitution, etc. For instance, like sugar. Actually, sugar has a problem for many years. Low productivity of sugarcane, low productivity or rendement of sugar, and then even the land is lost because some farmers who traditionally cultivate sugarcane and then they change from sugarcane to other crops because long time ago the government closed several factories in Java. That's not good news. And then we should enlarge or expand land. Now government has many projects like estate, food estate, etc. But we don't know how to implement, how to do the food estate because there is still questionable. So we should support that kind of food estate, but there should be developed agribusiness integration. Inside agribusiness should be integrated, like input, agricultural input, and then farm, and then output or processing, and then support, and then marketing. This 5 subsystem of agribusiness should be integrated into one area. And also there should be increased farm size because our farmer has small size of farm, so we should increase farm size and then maintain large size. Like oil transmigration is if farmers has 2.25 hectares, then after that the farmer sell the land to others, so the farmer becomes smaller and smaller farm. So it should be not like that. So our proposal is not what's that? The status of the land should be HGU, hak guna usaha. So there is no cannot be decreased anymore. And then provide good infrastructure. I think we know that the transmigration program before is transmigration is not good. So there should be a better transmigration. And then this one is there should be also food policy. We know that food policy, integrated food policy. We know that now the government introduce Badan Pangan Nasional. Badan Pangan Nasional. That's a good news, but we should wait for the implementation. So depend on the implementation, but it's good because Badan Pangan Nasional should be implemented soon. And then also we should have export promotion and value added. There should be new market. We know from the news that Afghanistan is also what source of export destination, good export destination, because we know that export goes to Afghanistan is become larger and larger. So that's we should use this opportunity. And also other country like Cambodia, Laos, and etc. There should be good export destination. And then the product we should export must be a final product, not raw material anymore. Because if the final product is produced domestically, we will have value added and economic activity. Value added and economic activity, so that we can use the abundance of labor for the industry of this final product. And then we should utilize the regional union market, not be used by other country, but we should use this regional union market to be our good export market.
Actually, Prof. Masuri, you only have 5 minutes left.
Okay.
You still,
okay. Thank you.
Please.
And then for the
speed up.
modernization, we should use Industrial Revolution 4.0, and then there's urban farming, smart farming, rooftop farming, drone, and also online marketing. And then from the institutional cooperative, based on the Bantul Red Union experience, I suggest that the cooperative should be in Dinas Agriculture Agency, not in cooperative agency as separate. Because if separate, they don't know the commodity situation. Okay, and the last one is there is FAO policy priorities for food security. If those one implemented using twin track approach. We will have food security index increase. I think that's all that our presentation. Then I apologize that our PPT sent you is not complete one because the miss. Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Thank you very
wabarakatuh.
much, Prof. Mashuri. We already listened the presentation from Prof. Mashuri. I think I will give some silent point from his presentation. The one that we should recognize that food security has multi-dimension from the availability, accessibility, utilization, and stability. And then in the next presentation from Professor Justus Wesseler, I think we will get some information about food security in terms of nutrition. That is nutritional added in rice, which is called golden rice. The other thing that Professor Mashiri mentioned, that Indonesia food security index is still low, and we still need many effort to achieve food security index. And the other thing that we should consider as well, that right now Indonesian population is 267 million, and the number will increase by 67 million for another year. I think in 2035, the population of Indonesia increased by 67 million, according to the forecasting of statistical agency. Okay, we move to the next presenter, next speaker, Professor Justus Wesseler. I think Professor Wesseler is ready to give a presentation.
Yes.
So you have 45 minutes, Professor Wesseler, and then before 45 minutes, I will give you some sign to speed up your presentation. Okay, time is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Irawan. It's nice to see you, and having worked with you for a number of years, it's nice to have former PhD students making their career and seeing them at an international university like yours. It's a great thing to observe. And I also like to thank Professor Samanhudi and the previous speaker, Professor Mashuri, for enlightening us already about the importance of the topics that we are discussing today. Food security is a very relevant issue when we look at it from several dimensions, including the social issues that are related to food security, also including issues that are related then to economic sustainable development, and several other dimensions that have been already been raised by the previous speakers. Now, what I will do is address one of a very important topic, which is related to the to one specific technology that has received wide attention in the literature. And now I have to see that. Yes, you can see my slide, I guess. Is this correct, Dr. Irawan? Can you see my slide?
Yes, I can see, but yeah, that's good.
Okay, thanks a lot. Now, and as I said, I will address one of the specific issues that has received a lot of attention in the literature, and that is a problem related to nutrient deficiency, and in particular vitamin A deficiency. This deficiency in micronutrient supply has substantial implications. Here I put together some numbers. About 125 million children mainly suffer from this. About 250 to 500,000 children go blind every year just caused by vitamin A deficiency. And unfortunately, more than half die within a year. If you survive it, it often results in stunted growth, but also makes you vulnerable to other common childhood diseases such as measles, for example. Now, when we look at the distribution of the prevalence of vitamin A deficiency, we can have a look at this map here that has been prepared by colleagues. And it's out of a publication from the Lancet journal. What you can see based on the colors, so the dark red colors are those areas where in percentage term vitamin A deficiency has the highest levels. And we observe this, for example, in sub-Saharan Africa, in South Asia. We observe this in Latin America, but you can also see that in Indonesia, which is colored in yellow, the prevalence is about 10% among children. And then the map below just shows you some of the errors that are related to estimating these kind of numbers. And that is also one of the larger problems is that it is difficult to assess to what extent vitamin A deficiency is distributed within a population. Now, the average number for Indonesia is less than 10%, but a recent study by Ernawati et al. Shows that it is about 16.6% among children. So these are about 11 million children in Indonesia that are suffering from vitamin A deficiency. So this is still a substantial number and illustrates that this is still a problem despite all the efforts that have been made to address vitamin A deficiency being still a problem. But this is not the only one. We have micronutrient deficiency like zinc deficiency, iron deficiency, and more. And it's not only that it relates into these health problems, but it also has economic implications such as increased health costs for the families and governments. It has implications for labor productivity and overall economic development. And a study that has been conducted by the so-called Copenhagen Consensus in the early 2000s, which was looking at the most economic important problems in the world, identified micronutrient deficiency as the #1 problem among all the other problems that economies are facing. And again, stressing the importance of addressing micronutrient deficiency for economic development as well. Now, one of the solutions to address vitamin A deficiency that has been developed by scientists is what we call golden rice. And what basically is happening is that vitamin A is not present in the rice seeds, in the normal rice seeds, but it is present in the husk of the rice. And what scientists did do is they transferred genetic information into the rice genes that this will result into the production of beta-carotene in the endosperm. So basically the white rice seed. And this beta-carotene is then converted into vitamin A in the body. Now, if you look at these rice varieties, then they get a yellow color if they successfully express the genes for beta-carotene. And that is what is shown here on the picture on the right-hand side below. You have this yellow colored rice, and that's why it also has been called golden rice, because you can easily identify this. Now, this sounds good, But there are, of course, issues related to the biosafety of this golden rice. Is it safe to consume a rice that has been developed using modern biotechnologies? And there are issues related to food safety and environmental safety, which have also been addressed in the literature by the research. And so far, the evidence shows that there are no food safety or environmental safety related to the use of golden rice. So the expectations at the beginning were very high. Okay, we have now a solution that can address one of the major problems with respect to micronutrient deficiency, and in particular for countries where the consumption of rice is very high and the vitamin A deficiency as well. This could be a great solution. And at the beginning of the 2000s, researchers were very enthusiastic. They expected that by 2002, golden rice would reach farmers' field in Asia and address vitamin A distribution deficiency. Now, till 2021, no golden rice has basically been planted on farmers' fields. So for 2 decades, basically no progress, if you may want to say it in this sense, has been made. Despite approvals, for example, for food safety by the United States, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia, which assess golden rice as being safe for food safety. Despite having some approvals, if you look at the Philippines, they approved on July 21, 2021, the cultivation of golden rice in farmers' fields. If we look at Bangladesh, which is the country with the highest per capita rice consumption, there we are still waiting for the approval. I looked into the policies for Indonesia, and as far as I can assess, based on the government information that are available, field trials have been conducted, but at this point in time, no further progress has been made. And as the picture here on the right-hand side shows, there is also some opposition to the introduction of golden rice. The same we observe in the Philippines, the same we observe in Bangladesh, the same we observe in India, for example. And one of the arguments is that, well, vitamin A deficiency can also be addressed by other solutions. For example, dietary changes. If you look at the beta-carotene content in other food crops like sweet potato, carrots, moringa, squash, tomato, you see that their beta-carotene content is above the content that you would find in golden rice. But despite having these dietary solutions available, we still face a problem, right? People are eating, of course, sweet potato and carrots, moringa and squash, but not at a high enough level. Further criticism is that, well, if you look at the required intake, that might be substantial to address vitamin A deficiency. And basically, this technology is used for introducing GM technology on a wider scale into population. For example, Greenpeace has published here this photo showing a 2-year-old would need to eat 3 kilograms of rice a day to reach a recommended daily intake. And they also say, if introduced on a large scale, golden rice can exacerbate malnutrition and ultimately undermine food security. And of course, this is not what we want to have. Now, if you look at this 3 kilogram picture, first of all, it has to be said that the golden rice or the beta-carotene content is larger than in the study or the numbers that Greenpeace has used. And it's not to completely solve vitamin A deficiency, but to make a contribution to vitamin A deficiency. Now, if we look at some latest studies, for example, Swami et al. From 2019, what they figured out that normal consumption of rice as observed among the population in Bangladesh would be enough with the current improvements that have been made, introducing beta-carotene in rice to reach more than 100% vitamin A intakes And if you look at the Philippines, the numbers would be between 57 to 99%. And now if you look at the rice consumption in Indonesia, at the annual number, so which is somewhere in between the Philippines and Bangladesh, and if you assume that basically the consumption behavior would be similar, then we could also say that it could contribute substantially to reduce vitamin A deficiency among children in Indonesia. Now, let's have a look why still, despite all these issues, golden rice has not been introduced. And as I mentioned, in 2002, the expectation was, yes, it will go into the field. Then a number of additional steps have been made to try to make it easier to use the application of golden rice for different countries, and solving a number of regulatory issues that might be related, such as, for example, issues related to intellectual property right protection. So the companies that have been involved in, not involved, but companies that hold patents on technologies related to the development of golden rice have given away these patents for free. So it's freely available for countries that would like to use the technologies. They do not charge extra costs on the seeds that are to be sold to farmers for the technology. So it's basically freely available. Now, the question that we did address in a very specific paper that has been published in the Environment and Development Economics journal in 2014 is, well, despite all these developments, etc., are the costs of delays substantial from an economic perspective? And we were particularly interested to identify to what extent does an irreversibility effect, meaning to say an irreversibility effect caused by policy decision makers that are reluctant to introduce the new technology, play a role. And we called this hesitance of policy decision makers to approve the introduction of golden rice as the economic power of opposition to golden rice. So basically, based on the observation that we have opposition and that this opposition is very vocal and has an effect on policy makers. And in this model, we identify what we call the golden rice strategy, for example, as promoted by the Humanitarian Golden Rice project, which provides the technology for free. We also assume in our assessment that the benefits of the program are known to the developer as well as to the national government based on studies being done. And the benefits basically then depend on the government's implementation strategy. And these costs we can also identify, as this is known, for example, from other technologies that have been introduced. We further assume that there might be extra costs by the government to implement this. So you have setup costs, administrative costs for introducing this. And then you have also what we call annual costs of running the strategy. Right. So that is breeding costs related to introducing on a continuous basis the specific traits into your national rice breeding program. And normally we would say that if the benefits outweigh the costs of implementing the golden rice strategy, a welfare maximizing government regulator would implement this golden rice strategy. Benefits are larger than the costs. Now, we observe they have not done this. So these are then the additional costs of uneasiness by the government decision makers about the potential consequences that they may face as decision makers if they would approve it. So basically, these are the concerns raised by opponents. Now, what we do is then include this extra cost to identify the threshold level. And these extra costs is, as I already mentioned, we call the economic power of the opposition to golden rice. And now in the model, we introduce this as being the perceived cost by the government decision makers. And again, as I said, when other benefits and costs are assumed to be known. And this basic assumption can make sense as we have a lot of information about this. Basically, in these perceived costs are all the remaining uncertainties that a decision maker will face. What we also introduce is uncertainty about the approval time. That is a parameter that we call kappa. And we introduce also the uncertainty of the policy decision maker. So he may not, will I be successful with my strategy and stay in office and be re-elected, not forced out of my job? Or will it be the other way around, that if I introduce a technology, I will face a lot of resistance, might not be re-elected, and will lose my job? And we indicate this with a probability of Q, that the strategy will be successful, and with a probability of 1 minus Q, that the risk of being ousted out of office will be high. And we then compare either the technology will be introduced immediately or you postpone this by time period kappa, which is considered to be uncertain. Now, this uncertainty, this kappa is uncertainty level, which runs from 0 until infinity. This time period is following exponential distribution function where we can identify the expected value. And basically, this is something that you can say, it might be 10 years, it might be 20 years, it might be 5 years, and we can calibrate the model accordingly. We assume that benefits will increase over time, so that at the beginning, the government introduces this, and then we have adoption is following a logistic adoption function. And with this, also the benefits will increase according to this logistic functional form. And hence, the overall benefits follow this kind of form. We then also identify irreversible benefits. So these are benefits that refer to benefits that cannot be reversed. For example, child death, or for example, blindness or stagnant growth. You cannot change this at a later point in time with improved nutrition. Then there are what we call reversible benefits. These are issues related to diarrhea or infectious secondary diseases like measles, which you can address by increasing vitamin A supply later in your life. And oops, no, I have to see. So, okay. So basically what you get is this kind here of functional forms, this light yellow, blue function is the adoption in our model. We assume that you may reach about 40% of your population with the vitamin A enriched rice. And then if you introduce the population dynamics and the benefits related to this, then you may get this dark blue line, for example, applied to the case of the Philippines, and this red line applied to the case of Bangladesh. And they reflect the $1 million in benefits being generated since introduction. So you get somewhat of a maximum of annual benefits around year 7 to 8, and then annual benefits tend to decline. And this is happening due to the discounting effects that we have to take into consideration. For assessing the annual health benefits, we use something that is called the disability adjusted life years, where specific diseases are assessed and valued with the economic costs related to these diseases. There, of course, is an issue related to this. How do you value one disability adjusted life year? Because you make an assumption about the value of a statistical life. Now, we used in our studies numbers that the World Bank uses for assessing health programs, and these are about $500 per life year, where you can adjust these numbers. For example, you can go to $1,000 or a higher level, and then of course the benefits from a vitamin A reduction strategy will increase. For example, if you go up to $1,000, basically the annual benefits will double. Oops, okay. Now, just a little bit of mathematics again. We can summarize and discount these annual reversible and irreversible benefits, and we have a discount rate. Then we can calculate the present value of the Golden Rise strategy by summing up all the benefits. We can introduce the perceived costs of the government, introduced with GC and IC as the irreversible costs and reversible costs, and then we can again calculate the net present value of this, and we can identify the benefits if you introduce this immediately. And we can then also identify the benefits of postponing the introduction, again with valued with the uncertainty related to whether or not there will be a strong opposition or whether or not this strategy will be successful. If it will be successful, you get this equation with Q in front, and that would be the benefits of a successful introduction. And basically, if the introduction would not be successful, then we basically have a value of 0, assuming that governments have the possibility to wait, and again, full information will be disclosed at the stage of the decision making. So if you basically know that the strategy will not work, you will not implement this, and then you have a value of 0 if the situation turns out to be bad. And basically, these are the benefits that we get from waiting with our decision. And then you do a maximization over this kind of decision-making problem. I just put here all the math if some students are interested in following the details. But basically what we then like to figure out is to what extent do the perceived costs by the government are of importance. And then you get something what we call a leverage factor. And what one can show mathematically, this is larger than 1. And what the important message basically here is that 1 unit of perceived irreversible costs by decision makers of introducing a Golden Rise strategy weighs more than 1 unit of other costs. So these concerns are more important to decision makers than other costs. Okay, so that basically means that if you are able to increase uncertainty among policy makers by expressing concerns about the new technology, it will be damaging to health, environment, etc., then this has a stronger effect than raising, for example, other issues related to the introduction of the technology. And that makes it more easy also for the opposition in economic terms to opposing the introduction of a new technology. And that is something that we not only face for Golden Rise, we face this for many other decisions that have to be taken by someone where uncertainty was related to the success plays an important role, and then opposition has it somewhat easier to raise these fears. Now, we can use the results and can look at the implications of using this model. And on one hand, we would love to compare this. Okay, does this matter if we introduce this uncertainty or not in our economic assessments? For example, on the left in this table, you see the basically the leverage factor if you have no uncertainty included in your model. When we have only uncertainty with respect to information, and if we have uncertainty with respect to the future benefits and the time when it will be introduced, and only uncertainty with respect to timing. And what you see here, you get different leverage factors, but what these factors show us that, well, economically, it is very important to introduce these kind of uncertainties in our model, because economically it plays a very important role. Now, we have calibrated this model for India in our paper, where we use some numbers that have been collected in a paper, in a research study by Stein et al. And we use these numbers for assessing the strategy for India, and we use the low impact scenario just to be on the safe side with respect to the benefits to be generated. For example, assessing the numbers of disability adjusted life years saved. And we basically use what we call the pessimistic scenario. Stein et al., they measure the burden of vitamin A deficiency with about 2.3 million disability adjusted life years per year for India. We identify that if you introduce the golden rice strategy immediately, that could save amount about 71,600 child death per year. The related irreversible costs about 74.4%. So this is 3/4 of the costs are irreversible and about 1/4 are reversible. On the cost side, so to say, we included some costs related to the development of the technology for India, that is launching a media campaign to introduce the strategies, the annual maintenance, breedings, etc. What you can see here is what would be the benefits. And now an introduction in 2002 would result in total over a 1 decade in 5.5 million disability adjusted life years saved. And or if you value this in 2012, due to discounting, you get a somewhat lower value. They lost over 1 decade about 1.4 million life years in India alone. And considering that the population of Indonesia is a little bit smaller than India, still this would be an extremely high value. If we identify the different weighing factors of the concerns by governments, we observe that if you introduce this uncertainty, you get a factor that is 2.6 times larger than a factor of 1.12 if you only consider uncertainty with respect to timing. So including this uncertainty about timing as well as government concerns plays a very important role. And we can also then, for example, model this by looking into when do we expect new information to arrive. And what we can see is that the leverage factor will decrease with an arrival of new information, in the sense that if the information arrives, let's say 1 day from now, the leverage factor will be high, but if it will be 10 years from now, the marginal effect of changes on the leverage factor will be somewhat lower. So to summarize the results from our study, it's about 1.4 million life years just on the irreversible costs. That does not include indirect health costs of vitamin A deficiencies, such as measles, for example. It's 707 million in net present value that India has foregone, and one has to also consider that we only identified the perceived costs that would justify a delay. So that is not fully capturing the total costs of or the total perceived costs. They might be higher. So, but this is just the minimum, the boundary level that would justify a delay. And where we can see that uncertainty and irreversibility with respect to this decision making substantially increases this amount of perceived cost. So they play a very important role, and that is relevant for modeling the benefits and costs of micronutrient strategies. The amount is substantial, and basically this also tells us that the economic power of the opposition against these strategies is extremely high. And this is about 85 times higher in relative terms than the cost of implementing the golden rice strategy. So this is a quite substantial difference about what this can do. We further have to consider that the numbers that we are using, they are at the lower end. We use the pessimistic scenario from Stein et al. Recent studies have shown that translating beta-carotene of golden rice into vitamin A are larger than expected, so larger than the numbers that we have used. And we also used a relatively low amount of disability-adjusted life years, so that number might also be much higher. So then, if you observe all these numbers, one question that remains is why then, given all the benefits, we observe still this strong opposition? What are the incentives behind being opposed to these technologies? Well, this is something that has not yet been well investigated empirically. So there's a lot of research missing. Well, one study from 2010 argues that basically the opposition to golden rice or similar technologies is based on financial support. So the environmental and other organizations that are opposed to these technologies receive financial support from European Union and from other countries, and depend on these income also for their own survival as an organization, as well as having a stable income. What we also know is there will always be vocal groups opposing a new technology. And as I mentioned, golden rice is not an exception. Now, this has also implications then for a strategy to countervail these powers. And there you have to, that can be balanced. And this is something that some psychologists have told us, like Kahneman and Tversky, that you can balance this with uncertainties over not having access to this new technology. Not just stressing the benefits of the new technology, but stressing the uncertainties related for not having it. And as I said, this opposition is not unique to golden rice. That is what has been observed, for example, for transgenic crops in the European Union. And the differences between the what we observe, for example, in the United States and Europe might be also be driven by how the governments have reacted and responded to opposition. And as I said, a small industry has already been developed around the opposition of golden rice, and that seems to be relevant. Now, will golden rice be a miracle for Indonesia? Coming back to the initial question, a miracle, golden rice will not be a miracle, but potential for benefits are high for Indonesia, as I mentioned. And the main beneficiaries, that will be poor children below the age of 5. Again, these are about 11 million children a year that we are talking about. And what you have to bear in mind, golden rice will be a cheap solution if introduced into the economy. You don't have to go around and distribute vitamin A pills. You don't have to have campaigns changing your diets, etc. It is just up to the households to decide whether or not they want to consume this rice. The freedom of choice is still be there. And the nice part of golden rice is that consumers can easily identify this based on the color. If you don't want to eat the golden rice, you don't have to. If you are convinced that this is good for your children and for your health, you can. Nobody will force you. It's still the free choice of the consumer. And considering the economic implications this may have, this may result in an economic miracle, as been shown by other studies. Now, if you would like to know more about this, here are the references to the papers that we have published on this topic in environment and development economics. We have 2 papers and an update on ARE. And I also would like to invite you to attend our annual conference. I'm also the president of the International Consortium on Applied Bioeconomy Research. We meet annually, online and offline, so it's in the form of a hybrid meeting, and I like to encourage all of you to submit papers and attend our conferences. With this, I like to close my presentation and happy to take comments and questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Professor Wesseler. This very nice presentation. I think it is new for most of these participants about the golden rice. I just want to summarize. Maybe it is very hard to follow your presentation because so many mathematics and some of participants maybe quite hate to mathematics. And then what is the simple idea? I think there is a potential of golden rice to fight vitamin A deficiency, but on the other hand, there is a cost for delaying adoption of golden rice. So the government has option whether they adopt immediately or postpone. But if postpone it, there is a cost, and the cost is quite huge cost according to the study of Professor Wesseler. And in Indonesia, it's if we bring this study to Indonesia, because Indonesia is, I think, still very early about golden rice. I also do not have any information about golden rice in Indonesia. We do not have any information about whether it's already implemented or not. But you have mentioned earlier in your presentation that in some area there is a trial, I think, but we do not know so far about the result of the trial of golden rice in Indonesia. So we already have 2 speakers. They have presented their idea to all of you. And then it is a time for us to discuss about the food security and also golden rice. I think if we can elaborate about the the material that's given by our speaker, we can benefit a lot if we can discuss it here. So for the first opportunity, because our question and answer slot is only 30 minutes, so for the first opportunity, I will give 3 participants to ask the question by raising their hand in a Zoom. You can you can raise your hand, or you can type your question in the chat room, or you can ask in Bahasa Indonesia and then we will translate it to English. If you are not confident enough to speak in English. And Professor Eustace also understand Bahasa Indonesia a little bit, I think.
A little bit.
Okay, you can ask in Bahasa Indonesia and then we try to translate your question.
Yeah, let me say a few words about, you were talking about what's going on in Indonesia. So field trials have been done, but then they have stopped in 2014, as far as I could figure out, looking into the internet and what the Golden Rice Project is saying about Indonesia. And my question is, why does Indonesia not go ahead? Why are you concerned, or why are you not taking up this opportunity?
Yeah, because in our policy, I think about genetic modified organism is still a sensitive issue. If I still remember around 20 years ago, or I still in undergraduate at the time, there is cotton GMO. That's it's tried to be cultivated in South Sulawesi, but afterward there is yes, opposition about that's new technology, because of the afraid it's become affected to the native species, about that, etc. But about the biological system in our agricultural system, if we introduce new technology that's genetically modified, and we do not know the impact yet. So in Indonesia, so far there is no any information. There is no any policy that's allowed that's to cultivate GMO. But we imported GMO, especially soybean, from United States. This is clearly this ironic, or not ironic, paradox. Yeah? Paradox. We opposed to the GMO, but we imported soybean from United States that is clearly GMO product. But for the rice, we do not know yet. Maybe Professor Masuri can give information about that, because he devoted his career to rice research. Or Miss Riris or Professor Endang or Professor Darsono can give some information about the rice in Indonesia. Do you want to say something, Professor Masuri?
He's muted.
He's muted, yeah. Professor Masuri, do you want to say something about?
Okay. Thank you. I support your views that we plan to produce GMO for soybean, right? But we receive import GMO from United States. That's the controversy. And then the second one, you talk about the rice. We import rice from Vietnam and Thailand, right? And in Thailand and Vietnam, there is no GMO variety of rice. So that's all.
Do you know if Indonesia tries to continue research on golden rice? So the Philippines have approved it for cultivation this year. So they might plant in farmers' field in autumn this year. Bangladesh may approve it soon. how is the situation in Indonesia? Why does Indonesia not go ahead and follow Bangladesh and the Philippines?
Yeah, well, it's difficult to understand because
Okay.
because we are not consistent. We are not consistent.
Yeah.
It's bound to produce GMO, but we receive GMO products. That's all.
I think it's because we choose the cultural solution, like we want to change dietary style in Indonesia. For example, we want to diversify. That's to be full. It's mean full in stomach, kenyang bahasa Indonesia. And then to be full, we do not need to eat rice. You can eat sweet potato. Maybe because we have a lot of substitute for golden rice, Professor Eustace. We have sweet potato, we have tomato, carrot, and etc. in Indonesia. So to feel the need for the vitamin A or other vitamin, we can we sufficiently can eat another food that is substitute for golden rice. Maybe that's one of the reason.
You still have 16.6% children that are not, despite eating sweet potatoes and carrots, suffering from vitamin A deficiency. So that is basically the problem. You have all these other solutions, and they definitely work, but they seem to not work well enough yet to completely solve the issue. And that is basically the big problem, because it causes so many secondary diseases.
Yes.
So even if you're not dying, you have secondary diseases like measles, typhus, etc. And there seems also to be a link now with COVID-19, that if you suffer from vitamin A deficiency, that you are also more easily adapt COVID-19 because your body is weakened. But there the evidence is not yet so obvious. The second thing is where people are getting concerned. So I don't have the numbers for Indonesia, but for the Philippines and for many other countries, we observe that the health budget is now moving to COVID-19 and less is available for addressing other health issues. For example, this vitamin A strategies that many governments, also Indonesia has a vitamin A strategy, and they have been relatively successful. Still, there's 16.6% left. That this now will move to COVID-19 health expenditures, and that the vitamin A deficiency issue will re-emerge to be stronger despite the positive trends we have observed over the past years. So that is where health workers and economists are concerned, so that you have a secondary, basically COVID-19 effect due to other health costs increasing.
Yes, that's a possibility for the vitamin malnutrition in Indonesia. Yeah, but okay, I open the question for another participant who wants to discuss with our presenters today.
Yes, I think
Okay.
I have question.
Yes, you can ask.
For both speaker. The first question to Professor Masyuri, it is related to the food security in Indonesia. So Professor Masyuri, how do we improve the food security? Because at the same time, the cultivation area in Indonesia has not been developed. And then the question for Professor Besseler, actually, I wonder, how did the golden rice begin to be cultivated in India in the first place? I think Indonesia should learn the successful of the golden rice cultivation in India. And then I also interest about your model, your empirical model. Is it the econometrics model using the restricted model or impulse or unrestricted model? Thank you.
Should answer directly or
yes, yes, should answer. You can answer directly, I think.
Okay, thank you very much for the Mrs. Ernoy's question. I think how to improve food security. First of all, is that for the rice, we import is about 6%. Import 6%. Actually, if we produce domestically and import, it's okay for the availability. It's okay, but it's not self-sufficiency. Yeah, for the food security is okay, but not self-sufficiency. And actually, the international market are thin. Yeah? So actually, is if we depend on the international market, also is very riskier, because the international market are thin, very thin. Therefore, we should increase our domestic production by enlarge areas. You know, the government now is increase the land area by establishing food estate in Kalimantan, in Sumatra, and in other areas in Indonesia. That's good for the to increase availability, food availability. Yeah. But of course, we still have another problem on the food security, like the access, because we have so many poor people, unnourished people, and then stunting children, etc. So this one is there are many related issues about that. But one thing is we should also to improve our people income, because poor people, and then for stunting children, this can be coped by increasing their income. For the farmer, to increasing farmer size of land, and then increase productivity, and then give subsidy, give fertilizer, and etc. There are still many things to do, and this depend also to the government whether we will improve or not. But actually, from the global food security index, we are now decreasing. So that's also, there are many indicators that our food security is not good. Global food security index, and then nutrition, and then stunting, and then hunger, and then poor people, etc. So we still have many effort to increase our food security. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Masyuri. Prof. Wesseler, can you answer the question of Riris?
Yes, happy to do so. The situation for India is it has not been introduced there. So that is why we did this study. So India there has a very strong opposition towards golden rice, and so far there is no intention for India to introduce it. It has, as I mentioned, the Philippines. You may want to have a look at what they are doing and how successful this will be, because they have approved it for farmer cultivation this year. And this is something definitely interesting to follow up. Also to look into Bangladesh, how they continue there. Now with respect to the model, so it's not an ex post model, it's an ex ante simulation model, right? And what you basically do is, as I explained in the mathematical part of this, you try to calculate the discounted net present value of the benefits that are arising from the introduction of the golden rice variety, which depends, first of all, on what you assume with respect to the adoption function among farmers, farm households, because this then has an effect on the rest of the economy. And there we draw on the experiences that we have from other technologies that have been introduced. And it's standard in the literature to use a logistic adoption function that has been introduced by Griess-Williges in the literature. And I think you have done this, at least if you follow classes of Professor Irevan, you should know about the logistic adoption function of new technologies, right? And then you look into the health benefits, and that is a somewhat more complicated topic. You use what we call the disability adjusted life years. So you have to know something about the distribution of the population, like the children below 5 years. Normally, this is the standard where we look at. These are numbers where the United Nations provide information for different countries. And also with respect to vitamin A deficiency, they normally concentrate on children and not on older parts of the population. But pregnant women, for example, are also largely affected. But the numbers and information are difficult to get. So you use this, and then you weigh this with the information that you have on the death rates caused by vitamin A deficiency, on the levels of corneal diseases, etc., night blindness, etc. And these numbers are normally collected by the health services of different countries, and then you put a weight on this. And again, this is where the ethical issue comes in. How much does a year of life value, right? And so normally we call this a statistical value of life, and that is related to labor productivity. That is not saying that this is a value of a life, okay? But we just express this in economic terms. Life, of course, is much more valued than just $500 a year, whether you are living in Indonesia or in the United States. But to a certain extent, we would love to see, at least from an economic perspective, what this may matter or contribute.
Good. Just already answered the question, I think, Ms. Redis. There is another participant wants to ask a question. Mrs. Dea and Fabri, hello, who raised the hand. There are two. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. You ask first Dea and then continue by Fabri.
Okay.
Miss
Thank you. My name is Dea Kania. I'm graduated from agribusiness. First of all, that was interesting presentations, and I want to ask for first, I've ever read the news about the government of Surakarta has erased the sustainable rice field in Solo, and Solo relies on the supplies from the surrounding area. I want to know from the perspective from Prof. Masyuri, what do you think about the case? Is that a good way or not to erase the sustainable field rice in Solo? Or do you have any suggestion for that case? Thank you. And for the second question, I want to address to Prof. Wessler. I'm curious about, do you eat the golden rice too? And what is Yeah. And what is the most challenging factor to implement the GRS in Bangladesh or in Philippines? Thank you.
Okay, February. Before the February.
Okay, thank you. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Febri Pankatristan, and I am from class of 2019 agribusiness in UNS. I would like to ask Professor Wessler a question regarding golden rice adoption. Indonesia is classified with severe subclinical in vitamin A deficiency by the World Health Organization as per 2017, and is one of the countries that uses rice as a staple crop to be available for consumption, and it has to be grown by rice farmers, offered for sale and purchased by families. And earlier in the presentation, it is said that the progress in Indonesia is still no progress in the field trial. And what I want to ask is, how do we persuade local farmers and even the government to adopt the usage of golden rice that is actually contributing positively towards the nation's overall welfare? Thank you very much.
You are welcome. Thank you, Febri, and thank you, Dia, as well. I should underline about the sustainable rice land in Indonesia, because it is not so familiar with Professor Eustace. I think in Indonesia we have to, in some area, we have to preserve rice land preservation. So not sustainable rice land. In preservation, this is land is designated only for rice production. So it's not allowed to convert it to another land uses. So we have Rice Land Preservation Act or law in Indonesia about that. But in some area like Surakarta, it is the city where the Universitas 11 Maret located. The government decided to to convert that land. So it is breaking the law, I think. So that's the question from the first participant. That's what I would like to clarify the sustainable rice land. So actually about the preservation of rice land. So Professor Masuri, you can respond for the first question, and then followed by Professor Wessler.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, for the rice field, was that sustainability? Actually, this one is there should be agreement. There should be agreement between local and national. Local and national. Actually, the objective, the target is for national level, and then for the national level, how to cultivate, how to produce rice in every regional or local place, local level, kabupaten or province or kota, city. Yeah, there should be agreement. That's the first point. And then the second one, from the local point of view, local government point of view, actually they want to increase regional income, right? From the point of regional income, maybe the rice is not the best one to increase regional income. Yeah? That's the point of view of the local government. But if every local government like that, so we have no rice field, right? So we should have agreement in national level how to produce a certain level of production, and then divided by every district or every province so that in every district or every province should cultivate the rice field. This from national level. So actually, this one is the observe the fight between local and national level. I think there should be an agreement that if we should determine how many hectares, how many million hectares should be cultivated by rice, so that we divided between this one into province and kabupaten. That's actually that's all the fighting upstroke, the fighting between local government and national level. The national level to the objective is to produce enough rice, enough production of rice, but the local level want to produce a higher regional income, something like that. So this one is we cannot meet this one. So we should follow the leadership of the government to make food security, how to maintain our food security, and then we should divide between every local government to determine how many hectares. I think that's all.
Okay, I think it's quite clear the response from Professor Mashuri. Professor Eustace, so you can respond for the question from participant.
Yes, so the first question was if I would eat golden rice. Of course, if I would have access to this, it has been proven to be safe by the United States, by Canada, by New Zealand, and by Australia, and I trust their food safety authorities. And I think if it would, Europe has not approved it yet. It hasn't been applied for approval, but I would also think that also European Food Safety Authority would approve the food safety of golden rice. Now, what is the problem with the strategy of implementation? Why has it been delayed in Bangladesh and in the Philippines? Yeah, there were a lot of concerns being raised by environmental groups towards the introduction of golden rice. So there have been field trials in the Philippines that have been destroyed by groups. In Bangladesh, we observe the same, that the opposition to golden rice is very vocal and says, okay, we will start basically social unrest if you will introduce golden rice into our economies. And that is why policy decision makers are afraid. So they need to have, they need to be strong, right? Also to be willing to face oppositions there. Now, with respect to what Indonesia should do, again, it's mainly a decision that has to be made at government level, and the Ministry of Agriculture and related ministries that are involved in for example, approval for rice. It's in Indonesia. They are the ones that need to move ahead. In the Philippines, it was the Ministry of Agriculture that moved ahead, and then the Ministry of Environment was also involved and had to be convinced. In Bangladesh, it's mainly the Ministry of the Environment that is opposing the introduction in Bangladesh. But the Ministry of Agriculture was also the one moving ahead with this. And I think that is also what is perhaps needed for Indonesia. And as I said, people are free to choose, right? You just give them the opportunity. You're not forcing them to buy this. You would not force the farmers to cultivate. It's up to the farmer to decide whether they want to cultivate this variety or another variety, if they want to choose golden rice varieties or not. Leave this to the farmers to decide. I'm convinced that many of the farmers are quite knowledgeable and intelligent, and they know the health situation of their families, and they will do it. We have seen this for many other products. If you look at BT eggplants in Bangladesh. So an eggplant that is resistant to the Bt stem borer. Adoption rate was outrageously high, right? So it was basically moving out, going through the eggplant production in Bangladesh. And the benefits are huge reduction in pesticide use, a lot of health benefits, and you have a clean and nice eggplant, right? And now some of the information that we have is that it is now also entering illegally India, because the benefits are so high for the farmers. They save a lot of costs, they gain health benefits, and that's why they want to use these new technologies. And the crops are much better. And the same will happen with golden rice, I'm quite convinced.
Okay. I think our time is up. This almost 15 in the afternoon. I do not know, in 109 o'clock, I think, or more.
Or almost 10 o'clock, yeah.
Almost 10 o'clock.
Yes. So ready for the coffee break.
I think we already talked long enough this one. So sorry, we can't serve coffee for you, Professor Wessler. It's so
Invite
far.
me over, and then I would love to drink some Indonesian coffee.
Okay, please come here if you have time. We will invite you sometimes to give a lecture in
Dr. Irawan.
Universitas 11 Maret. Yes, Professor Mas.
I want to have my opinion about golden rice.
Yes, okay. Okay, little bit,
think,
because our time is very...
Okay, I think golden
short, yeah.
rice has decreased in using pesticide and has no negative effect on health, and then higher productivity. I think we will accept that golden rice. That's my conclusion.
Hopefully, if the policy allow that one. I do not know about the policy ban for the genetic modified organism in Indonesia, especially from Ministry of Agriculture. I think we should.
Our problem is belief that the GMO has a negative effect on health. That's the problem.
Yes. Okay, we come to the last session. I think then I should give some summaries what we have discussed so far. So there are two things that I think quite become a salient point of this discussion. The first that about the food security in Indonesia. Indonesia still have many homework on code to achieve food security. Food security not only about the food availability, but also the access, about the nutrients, what Professor used to discuss. So, and the other is, about the stability, whether the supply is stable, including the price of the food. We have experienced very high food price in 2008, so I'm not wrong. That's in Indonesia. I think around the world we suffer for very high food price because there is a competition between agricultural product for food and also for bioenergy. This is also maybe in the near future we also have the same experience. And the second one, there is a potential for genetic modified organisms such as rice, golden rice, to solve some problem related to food security, especially undernourishment. That is still a problem in Indonesia, and currently we are still struggle for fighting for solving the problem of stunting in especially in for the children less than 10 or 12 years, a stunting problem in Indonesia. So because the chain effect of this malnutrition is very huge, about the intellectuality and productivity for the future generations. So we should solve this problem immediately. And Professor used to suggest that golden rice, which can solve some problem of food security, should be adopted immediately. Postponing the adoption will cost a lot, according to the ex ante. I should underline ex ante study, and this is based on real option method, I think. So we still need some information to convince our policymaker to give a possibility to adopt golden rice in Indonesia. I think that's the thing that I should mention or conclude or give a remark for this discussion. And once again, thanks a lot to Professor Eustace for willingness to give enlightenment for Indonesian student and also Indonesian lecturer here. Hopefully we can have another cooperation in the near future, so you can visit us here, and then or we can collaborate in some research about in agriculture. And also thanks to Professor Mashuri from Gajah Mada University for your presentation. We have a lot of information about the food security in Indonesia. So before I close this webinar, should I close it or another? I only close for the discussion, and then I remind you all, including presenter, to fill in presentation that's already distributed through chat room. Please you fill in the presentation over there. Thank you very much for all participants and also for our speaker. See you next time, and all best for you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, and hope to look forward to further collaboration.
Yes.
You should do a study on golden rice for Indonesia.
Okay.
Yeah,
that would be very helpful.
Yeah,
well, don't forget to fill the presentation, Professor Wesseler, because we need for administration. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I leave now. Bye-bye.
The time I give to Miss Chandra to handle the webinar.
Thank you very much to our great moderator, Mr. Dr. Evi Irawan, who has led this webinar so that event can run smoothly, and also to the participant for very active participation. For your information, that the audience can make a link presence that has been sent by the committee via the column chat. And then, dear audiences, ladies and gentlemen, with the end of today's agenda, it also ends the webinar Top Scholar 2021 Agribusiness Study Program of Agriculture Faculty Universitas 11 Maret. Hopefully, the knowledge gained from the course of the webinar can be useful for all of us. Amin. Let us close this webinar. I am Maheswari Chandraningtyas as the Master of Ceremony today, and also as the committee of this program. Beg your pardon of the mistake we have made. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.